Yeah. Okay. That's much better. Let's shift closer over this way so you're in the center of the.
Good evening, Penn State. Tulsa. Hey, Steve. Aim low.
Hey, Carrie.
San Francisco, behind the lines, Carolina. Ooh, Taiwan. Lafayette. Thailand. I love when we get the international guys in here. Geez, we just had Thai food yesterday.
Wow, Chris. We're doing good, Carrie.
Tennessee, Illinois.
Still dealing with migraines, but I'm still battling through it.
St. Louis, Florida.
Fortunately, I gave myself an amazing gift for 2021.
Racine, Wisconsin. You missed Tenutas out there.
Never mind, I'm not going to talk.
I enjoy seeing where people are from.
Yeah, I'll be quiet.
Texas. Bet that would be Germany. Yeah. Michigan. Bama. Canada. She may be proud of that class. She shot awesome. She chose the SIG M18. Hawaii. FM 1960 local.
Okay, we're going to get started. We have a few submitted questions from earlier. If you would like to donate during the chat, you can use the donate link for donor box. That's on smallarmsolutions.com. I'll also put it in here in the chat line, and you can put your question in the comment section, and I will receive an email, and you'll get priority over all the questions that are coming into for the evening. They only take about 3%. Google does take 30%, but if you would like to use the super chat function and donate that way, you absolutely can. We don't just take paid questions. We will be sporadic all throughout, so don't despair. I will be rolling back up to the top and pulling questions at random. First up is Michael. With CZ purchasing Colt, including DeMaco, are there any laws that you are aware of that would prevent CZ from importing those DeMaco guns as pistols or the parts separately into the U.S.? It would seem to me if CZ can import into the U.S. from Chechnya, they should be able to bring in Canadian stuff.
No, it's Colt Defense who prevents that stuff from being imported. Now, they can bring in parts kits and just build certain parts here like any other gun that can be done. This was always Colt Defense who stopped that. This was never anything other than you can't bring in the barrels, you can't bring in the lower receivers, but they can bring in all the other parts. They can bring in the barrels that are unfinished. So they certainly could do that. But Colt did not want the competition here in the U.S. from DeMaco.
John from Donor Box wants to know, I have a BRN 180 braced pistol chambered in 300 blackout. Do you think this design is suitable for a fighting gun or just a cool toy? I have several different options, but do really enjoy the BRN 180.
I have not put enough rounds. Yeah, I've only got maybe 500 or 1,000 rounds through the BRN 180s, which is far not enough to determine if it's a good fighting rifle. I think it really comes down to you getting confidence in how much you're shooting it and its in reliability. I never looked at it as a fighting rifle. I looked at it more as more as pretty much a retro type rifle. Um, the accuracy is certainly decent on a 5.56. I haven't shot the 300 blackout yet. It really just comes down to you being comfortable with it. If you testing your magazines and your ammo, and you have the reliability, then there's no reason it's not.
Kirk on Donor Box says he has a friend who likes to go to flea markets and pawn shops, even during the current crazy times. Last weekend, he scored a deal on a Smith& Wesson MP10 lower. He said, great deal, even pre-crazy times. Will he have any compatibility issues with an AR-10 upper of any sort?
If I recall, those were DPMS pattern guns. I've got one right behind me, but I can't look at it because of the YouTube laws. Um, I'm not sure the compatibility. A lot of these companies do have their own uh, take on these things, so there are some differences. I have never taken any parts off of a MMP10 and swapped them. MMP15, yes, but MMP10, no. Um, if it was, it would be the DPMS pattern, but I've not actually tried that.
Sean would like to know what buffer spring for AR-15 20-inch barrel and 6.5 Grendel.
Well, in a perfect world, the standard rifle buffer, rifle spring. If not, you probably want to go with a one of the Valtor A5s with the standard weight buffer. Basically, the five steel weights.
Steve, thank you for your donation. I'll be looking for your question tonight. Kevin wants to know, what are your thoughts on the new LMT mid-length 12.5-inch barrel? It seems like awfully short dwell time to me.
Well, you're definitely getting more time from the chamber to the gas port, which is a good thing. Um, I haven't had a chance to actually take a look at the stuff yet. Um, LMT, it's very hard to, for me to get stuff out of them, these days, especially with the newer stuff. I'd love to get my hands on one of their upcoming Estonia reference rifles. Hopefully that's going to happen. 12 inch is something, or the mid-length gas system they have put out a 14.5 before. This is relatively new. If it didn't work, I know Carl wouldn't have put it out. But I think I'd like to get some time on that trigger myself just to see what the benefits of it are.
Can I use standard hops gun oil on my Desert Eagle?
You can, but there's far better stuff out there. Hoppy's that's a very liquid, very much of a watery type oil. It's not very good. You're far better off going with a good G96 CLP. Would work a hell of a lot better than that. Hoppies is one of those things where it's tradition. It's been around for a long time, but by today's standards, it's primitive. It's not something that I would use. Never really, even when I was a kid, I didn't really use it. I would probably say you're better off going with a real modern day CLP, like the G96 Bio CLP.
What is your opinion on the M4 carbine?
It's probably one of the best battle rifles of all time. That's certainly is my favorite. My career's pretty much been dedicated to the studying of this weapons platform. If you're interested in some of the details, we do have a 2-part series on the history of the M4, which is in detail on exactly what it is and why it is. Also, my book Black Rifle 2, if you have a chance to get your hands on one of those, has an entire chapter on the M4, where it came from, and so forth. So yeah, it's obviously probably one of my favorite rifles.
Do the sand carbon cutter slots on the KAC SR25 bolt meaningfully improve reliability compared to the standard LMT MWS bolt?
No, even the MWS bolt has a couple cuts on it. It's more of a gimmick. It doesn't really offer you all that much. It doesn't hurt nothing, but it doesn't really give you that much more.
Do you think the Galil Ace in 5.45x39 is the pinnacle of the Kalashnikov design?
Well, the 5.45 was a major enhancement for the entire AK platform. It gave you a flat shooting and it gave you a much more accurate gun. The Galil Ace is certainly probably one of the nicest guns ever made in that chamber, in that caliber. I guess there's people who will argue, AN94 and some of those other ones too. But considering what you can get your hands on, it probably is the nicest one. I'd love to get my hands on one of those too, but those are very limited numbers. Tim over Military Arms Channel did a really nice review on. I know he had access to both the pistol and the carbine.
What do you think is the shortest effective AR-15 barrel?
10.5. I would not go below 10.5 for reliability. You think the shorter you go, the less powder you burn, and the lower the velocity. The lower the velocity, you're defeating the benefits of a high-powered rifle round. Um, you're still going to get a couple hundred, 300 yards easy with a 10.5, but you're going to at least maintain somewhat of a decent velocity. But it's also the minimum for reliability. I would never go below 10.5. 11.5 is even better. 12.5 is even better than that.
Have you ever been to Dragon Man's place in Colorado Springs? Have you had any experience with his AR rifles?
No, sir.
Do you think it's possible to achieve the recoil impulse, weight, and balance of a DI AR-15, but using a piston system, perhaps a different piston design that hasn't been done before?
Well, probably the nicest one I've seen, primary weapon systems with their long stroke. That's probably one of the nicest of all the external piston guns for as far as recoil impulse. Um, it's a different dynamic, so it does hit you differently. But I guess it's probably the nicest one that I've seen or I've shot would be the primary weapon systems if you wanted an external piston version in an AR platform.
In today's market, I can get parts to build an AK, but can't find a whole AK to buy. Is it worth to build my own? I have, but a custom Mauser 98 and several ARs.
Well, you have to know how to do it. Putting an AK together is not like putting an AR together. You basically have to have a press. You're using rivets. You have to be sure that you're doing the rivets properly. The way you locate the barrel, it's not as easy of a process as an AR is. If you don't have the experience and the tools to do that, I would not recommend it. I'd recommend that you get your parts together. Give someone like Vince Buckles a call down at in Gonzales, Illinois, there at Basic Kinetic Research, and have him put it together for you, or have somebody who has experience doing it. It's not a drop and fit like an AR. These are AKs are very much custom built guns. When you compare them to an AR, they're not just plug and play.
What year did the free floated front sightless AR-15 show up?
Free float really was probably back. I would say late 1990s. That was when the Swan rigid frame system came out. The first time you really saw a free float barrel. For as far as the front sight base was concerned, they had chopped those down during the Vietnam era. Well, to put scopes on them, that's not nothing new with the chopping down the front sight base. But probably the first free float handguard was Dick Swan's rigid frame system. And then his SIR system after that, and then of course everybody and their brother went to it after that. But that was probably the late 1990s, right up to the early 19 or 2000, 2001, in that time period in there.
Patrick on DonorBox. Thank you, Patrick. If you were to purchase a 6.5 Creedmoor AR pattern rifle today, what would you purchase?
Well, what I have is the LMT MWS with the 24-inch barrel, which is my favorite one. However, I have to say there's some other ones that I've had I reviewed that I really liked. One was one done by Core 15, which was an absolute beautiful rifle. You can check that video out. And I also recently had one that was by CMMG. Their Endure was a beautiful rifle too, for as far as accuracy. There's a lot of good ones out there. As long as you get a good barrel that's not really brand specific. I mean, hell, even Reed Knight just did a current contract for the U.S. government for M110s chambered in 6.5 Creedmoor. So pretty much everybody's making them.
Tad on DonorBox. Thank you, Tad. Been seeing some used Glock 22s, might be old police trade-ins, but haven't had a chance to look closer. They look pretty hammered on the outside. What exactly should I be looking for when it comes to used Glocks on the inside? If the store allows me to break the Glock down to examine it, or just wait until the new Gen 5s hit shelves if they ever get to market?
Well, a couple interesting things you brought. First off, I'll be picking up later this week or this weekend possibly a Gen 5 G22 for review. Fortunately, one of my viewers who has a shop got a few of them in, and he sent me one for review. It was designed specifically for San Paulo PD. Now, for as far as used Glocks are concerned, I wouldn't really be concerned about anything. You buy it. I would replace the recoil spring assembly and the trigger return spring. and you're pretty much ready to go. They don't wear out. It's not something that you have to replace parts regularly on, since you don't know what the life is of it or what its service life was or what's been shot through it. Those are the two parts that you replace is the trigger return spring and the recoil spring. You'll be good to go. I don't see any issues. For as far as waiting for the Gen 5, I don't see any reason to wait for it. I mean, it's not going to give you anything that much better. The Glock is only. I don't even think they ever even really made an announcement. They started shipping some in October. Um, if you want to wait, I guess, but do I see a reason to wait for it? No.
Do you know anyone at Palmetto? Or are they going to release the Jackal, aka the cheap KAC ripoff?
I have spoken with Josiah over there about that. All of these new products are on hold. He's not even giving me a date when I could even potentially see them. I've requested that. I requested their pistol, and I've just been waiting and waiting and waiting. I don't know. Those guys have overextended themselves because they're offering so much right now, especially their AK line. They're the only AK-74 game in the market now. And now with a lot of the importation issues, they're one of the few companies that makes 100% AKs built in the U.S. Um, I don't know. I'm on top of it. I do talk to Josiah every few weeks to check in with him, but I don't have an answer.
What's your favorite AR rails?
Well, I'm free from most of the part. I prefer mill standard 1913 on them, but as time has gone on, people tell me I'm archaic. So I end up with the M-Lock now for the most part, but I'm still a fan of the Quad 1913 rail.
What is your favorite bullpup in 5.56?
I'm not specifically a bullpup fan, but of the ones that are available today, and I have shot all of them, I probably would prefer the Tavor.
What is your favorite stock for SBNRing a SP5?
I like the Voltor mod stock or the LMT SOP mod.
How far is a 14.5 AR in 5.56 effective to?
Well, that's a 400-yard gun easy. That was the thing about why people prefer the M4 over the M16A2 or A4 is because at practical ranges, up to 400 yards, they were equal for as far as their accuracy. It's only after that where you started seeing a benefit to the 20-inch barrel. So yeah, you're looking at 400 meters easy. I mean, hell, in the military we qualified out to 350, 400 yards all the time. So yeah, you have a good longer range, intermediate caliber rifle.
Are shorter barrels in ARs worth it?
It's more of a cool factor. Um, as I said before, for as far as reliability is concerned, the longer barrel you have, the better. The longer distance you have from your front sight base to the muzzle, the better. The longer distance you have, obviously, from the from the chamber to the gas port is better. So ideally, in all ways, there's no mechanical benefit at all to having anything under 14 and a half. Do they work? Yes. They certainly do kill. They do what they're designed to, but you lose a lot of the benefits of what you would get out of a high velocity cartridge by having that shorter barrel. If there's no reason that you have to have a shorter barrel, you're better to go with as long as you can. I've told people many times, I think a 16-inch mid length is ideal.
When you worked at Colt, was there ever a discussion of making a gas regulation button or screw on an AR-15 platform, such as the FAL?
No. Again, for the U.S. military, he'd always always said that they did not want that. They wanted a self-regulating system. And Colt's attitude always was, if they only do what the U.S. government wanted, they never thought outside of the box. Colt really never did any production guns that had gas valves on them, even for suppressed. There were some prototypes that floated out there, but they never actually put to market a rifle with an adjustable gas valve for a suppressor. They were always very, very far behind that.
Thank you, Nathaniel. I want to give everybody an update on Black Rifle 2. Some of you may already know this if you follow us on social media. I just released it on Monday to let you guys know that, this was something that we knew that was eventually coming down the pike, but I've spoken to Susan at Collector Grade, and Black Rifle will not be published. Like, there will not be another round of books printed for Black Rifle 2. What's in inventory is what's in inventory right now. It's not a lot, I will tell you that. and I'm taking orders for, I, I would say, through the end of next week. The rate of orders that are coming in right now, I'm not sure that, it'll go beyond next week because there's not that many left. Once that book is out of print, the cost of it is going to triple. So if you do already have a copy of Black Rifle, you might want another one for your bookshelf, or you might want to hold on to it and you can sell it later. But I know there's been a lot of questions about, well, why don't we just go to a different publisher? Why don't we, somebody has suggested go to Amazon and have it printed there like our Armor's Manual. We do not own the publishing rights to Black Rifle 2. It is not something that we can just take to another publisher and reprint. Collector Grade always has owned the rights to Black Rifle 2. Chris decided on that when he was a 25, 26-year-old guy. And it was not a business decision I was on board with at the time. And but he saw it as a protection against any liability and any lawsuits. Collector Grade would assume that, and they would be liable, and he would not as the author. So we do not have publishing rights to Black Rifle 2. It does not look like it's going to be sold, which is unfortunate. Once Blake Stevens passed, his widow, Susan, has been keeping it going, and she's done an amazing job keeping it going. But I'm sure that, she's ready to retire and let it go. So if anybody would like a copy of it while it's still available, they are $98. You can email me at hbartachi@smallarmsolutions.com. That price includes shipping, and it also will come signed. As far as any of you guys who have books right now that, sometimes send them in to be signed, I'm not going to be doing that for a while. I'm focusing on this, and at some point, maybe in a year or two, we'll pick back up with receiving any other books to be signed. But for right now, that's where we're going with it. So if you guys are interested in that, you can email me, and I will send you an invoice, and you can pay by credit card, and then you will be on the list. So I recently got 100% unconverted 545 Sega for $1,400. I installed Bullet Guide, but nothing else. Should I try to fully convert it or cut my losses?
I would take that rifle and send it to Mark Krebs and have him do the conversion. I've got one of those sitting right next to me. There was a Sega that was converted by him, and is absolutely gorgeous. He does a wonderful job. I certainly would convert it. The gun will maintain its value, at least in my opinion, a hell of a lot more than leaving it original.
Chris, I've been watching you since the first channel. I recently found 100% and converted. Oh, wait. Oh, no. Oh, well, thank you for the donation. I was pulling your question from the top. Is the 6mm ARC ballistically the best of the non-556 AR cartridges?
It certainly appears. If you look at it on paper, it's still a new cartridge, has yet to really prove itself, but being able to remain supersonic past 1,000 yards is certainly a stretch. So if you look at it ballistically right now on paper, I would have to say it certainly is probably one of the best ones that's out there. There's still a lot of verdicts to come in for as far as the durability of the cartridge, or reliability of the cartridge, and so forth. But yeah, it looks pretty damn good.
Christopher on Donor Box, he says for the In and Out Fund.
Oh,
Joey on Donor Box wants to know, are you familiar with the Deadfoot Arms folding stock? They cut the BCG 1 3/8 inch shorter and have a spring mechanism so it can fire while folded, the only one on an AR I know of. Do you see any reliability issues with this, and do you think you will lose anything in accuracy?
it's not accuracy that I worry about, it's reliability, especially when you get your gas port gets opened up a little bit. This is one of those things that if you look at the way this gun was designed and how it works optimally, I'm not one for those kind of things. If you want a gun that works that way, buy something that's not an AR platform. Like for that, you may as well buy a SIG MCX. MCX was designed that way; it will work properly. You're not going to take away from its reliability by taking something that's designed as the AR platform is. I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of changing out the bolt carrier group and cutting it in half, and then getting to the point where you can't even get the proper weight of the buffer in there because you don't have enough room. For semi-automatic, it probably wouldn't be as much of an issue. myself, if that's really what you want, is something that compact, I would go with something like an MCX or something that was designed to have the recoil spring inside the receiver.
Can the JP silent captured spring be used in full auto mode on the M4?
They say no. JP, if you look at the package, it will tell you no. I know there's been some tests that have been done with the What Would Stoner Rifle Do on full auto, where they tested it and it worked. So they, wasn't a problem for them, but the manufacturer says no.
Saw your video on the CZP09. Would you still recommend it? And have you tested one long term?
I have not tested one long term. That was a T&E pistol. It was an excellent pistol. Just now, I have a P10, and I just got it right now, so I'll be doing a review on the P10. I think I tend to like the design of the P10 a little bit more. I would prefer seeing more of that type. I'm much of a fan of seeing a polymer frame with the CZ75 type slide. But it was a good pistol. I didn't have any problems with it. But you'll be seeing a review on the P10F very soon.
Do you prefer 9mm or 45 ACP?
If you would have asked me that question, a few years back, I probably would have said 45. With the new ammunition that they have out, and particularly Federal HST and their new Deep Hydro Shock, as well as some of the new G2 Generation 2 of the Gold Dots. I'm back to 9mm now. I don't feel a benefit to carrying a 45 any longer for as far as thermal performance. Big fan of 45, but looking at the data right now, there's no reason to have a gun that's that heavier when I could have a lighter gun with more rounds. Not now.
Have you seen Knight's new Secret Service 11.5 CQB E3 Mod 2 with an updated URX and proprietary upper?
No, I don't see too much of Knights stuff. Every once in a while, I'll give Ash a call and see it, try and get something out of them, but I haven't in quite some time. It's one of those things where it's unobtainium for the average man. Knight's stuff is extremely expensive, so yes, that's something I go after as much because again, I like to get you guys things that you can actually buy. Of course, that's prior to the pandemic where nothing is available, but I try to keep stuff that's available to you.
Is the M855A1 a better standard issue round than the Mark 262?
Well, it's a double-edged sword. Mark 262 is designed for precision, long range, and maximum terminal performance. M855A1 is a combat round. It's a general purpose where it has requirements for penetrating armor and so forth. They're very different rounds designed for two different purposes. Mark 262 isn't going to hurt your gun. M855A1 will. That round still to this day is a round that cuts the life of your service rifle in half because of the extremely high port and chamber pressures. The projectile gives you a half-life on your barrel. Two different rounds. One's not going to hurt your rifle, but they're two different purposes.
Thoughts on getting Gen 3 Glock 23 or 32 and get conversation barrels. Conversion barrels for ammo flexibility, and similarly the Glock 37 with the 40 conversion.
Sure. I've seen a lot of people who do that. I've never been one for conversion barrels outside of, say, 40 S&W and 37 SIG, which use the same parrot case. I tend not to really mess around too much with, let's say, converting a 9mm to a 40 and vice versa, due to the fact that the way the cartridge sits on the breech face. I tend to like to leave things the way they're designed by the manufacturer. But I've seen many companies out there who do that. I've seen 45 gapped and changed down to 40 barrels. They tend to work.
Thank you for the guys asking about my migraine situation. Is it okay to answer?
What?
It's okay to talk? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to make sure you don't want to read anything while I'm speaking. Thank you. I got myself insurance this year, so I'm actually went to the doctor today about it. But yeah, I'm still dealing with it. I think I'm on day 8 of a headache. So we actually, Do Colt uppers that had Demaco upper receiver parts sent down to Colt for builds here at Glock?
Mhm.
I don't understand. That's you're Pat. You're gonna have to rephrase your question. It kind of doesn't make sense. Is it true that Bred in 92, 96 doesn't need a booster to run with a suppressor?
Yeah, they do. Like anything else, it's got a locking system on it, just like anything else does. It's a little bit different because the Beretta pushes back versus the change of direction, the angle, like the routing linkless does. But yeah, you need to have a piston for that. The only guns you don't use pistons for are basically 22s and standard high power rifles.
What do you think about the SSA X government trigger benefits and such?
Where's that one at? Well, all the guys' triggers are absolutely incredible. I'm sure that's what you're talking about is the SSA. They have several different versions of their triggers, and I've never seen one of them I didn't like. And for as far as any kind of a rifle is concerned, who you prefer two-stage triggers, the SSA is awesome.
What are your thoughts on Noveska rifles?
I've been very impressed with the ones that I've seen. They are expensive. I hear a lot of things from other people, which again I don't really put too much stock in. Some say that they're that the quality's gone down with them. All I can tell you is the ones that I've had. And I had two of them, and they were absolutely beautiful rifles. I have nothing negative to say about them at all. If you all are interested in that, check out the videos. I have a video on a 308 and a 5.56.
Did you ever talk with Eugene Stoner on his other designs?
No, when I talked to him, it was primarily about the history of the M16, the original AR-15, and his SR-25. My meetings were never very long with him; they were relatively short. I got to ask some really cool questions, but unfortunately, the meetings were never, they weren't really sit downs where you could just pick his brain.
What do you think about the Arsenal SLR 107UR eventually going to SBR it?
I think it's an awesome idea. It's amazing. They're going to be one of the few countries that are left right now, anyways, that are importing AKs to us. Um, that's going to be that's more of a crisis right now. Any of you guys like me who are AK-74 fans, there's nobody importing them right now. Nobody. So your options are very limited. It's pretty much the Palmetto State or any parts kits that are coming in. And if the president decides to do an importation ban, that's what you're going to end up having to deal with is stuff that's completely made here in the U.S.
Will the U.S. military wide scale adopt one of the new 6.8 rifles they've been testing, General Dynamics SIG, etc.?
It's really interesting because the U.S. government's tried to replace the M16 for 60 years. Um, what they're trying, the whole premises of what they're trying to do is to have one rifle that does everything, and it's really difficult to do that. You want to, you're going to be in downtown Baghdad. You want a 5.56. You want an M4. You're going to be out in the mountains in Afghanistan. You're going to want a 308. Trying to figure out something that's going to do both of those is extremely difficult. Pretty much everything that they're looking at is the size of an AR-10. It's not the size of an AR-15. It's the size of an AR-10. And looking at one cartridge, you're looking at 80,000 psi. One of them you're looking at a polymer case, and one of them you're looking at a caseless type. It's very advanced technology that's going to have a lot to prove before you can put it in the hands of soldiers. Looking at the cost, there's still going to be that risk versus reward. If the cost is going to justify what they want, and also if it's going to be a quote significant leap in technology. So I always watch with skepticism until I start seeing orders being made. But you've seen this for years with individual carbine, with the ACR program, OICW, and all the SOCOM tests that have been done through the years. It's just trying to have one thing to do everything, one gun for all circumstances. I don't think is very viable. But I'm not going to get too excited until I actually hear of an order being made.
Joey on DonorBox. Thank you, Joey. What are the important modifications to a semi-auto DI AR-15 to sustain high rates of fire and ensure reliability? And does a piston system only add benefit once you get it into full auto?
First off, high rates of fire. Your benefits there. You want a heavy barrel like the SOCOM barrel. You want to be sure that you have an extractor ring, the O-ring around your extractor spring. Those are the two most critical things that you're going to need for that. Then, for as far as a buffer is concerned, you obviously have to make sure you have a proper buffer in there that's going to slow it down. So first, if you're firing on full automatic, you're not going to have carrier bounce, and two, you don't want to have it overgassed toward the point where you're going to have issues with magazine follower not being able to keep up. So you have to have a proper buffer in there as well. Generally, with a heavy barrel, you're looking at an H2. Then, depending on the gas system, where your port is, if your port's open a lot wider than the mil spec, then you're probably going to have to go with a heavier buffer. So there's some things you would want to tune with it. And of course, the barrel life is going to determine how many rounds you fire through it and how many of them are on full auto. But your two most critical things for full auto fire is having the proper heavy barrel and the extractor spring, an O-ring for your extraction. And keep in mind, as a barrel gets worn, within 6,000 rounds, you're going to have probably a minimum of 100 rounds plus a minute, increasing your rate of fire. And as that happens throughout the barrel life, you're going to have that issue with having to keep that velocity down of the bolt carrier so you don't have failures to feed.
How can I locate an 18-inch SBR KC upper or even a Mark 12 Mod 1 upper or complete? You're the guy to ask.
If you want a Mark 12 upper, there's only one guy, and that's Monty LeClaire at Centurion Arms. Now, for as far as those those handguards are concerned, last I knew, Reed only did one run of those per year, and that was for the retro guys who built the Mark 12 Mod 1s. So the only guy that I know who builds, still true Mark 12 Mod 1 upper receivers is Monty at Centurion Arms.
Is there any benefits in choosing an A5 buffer system for a 16-inch mid-length rifle versus the standard carbine buffer?
Not really. More of an aesthetic type thing for that, for as far as improving the service of the rifle. No. That really was designed for the M16A5 program that never came to fruition.
I'm currently working on doing a 727 clone with an older Bushmaster AR-15 upper, which lower design would be technically correct for the 727 A1 or A2 style lower.
A2.
JP captured or Geisley 42 for upgrading, Voltor A5, JP captured or Geisley 42 for upgrading buffer.
Well, I certainly would not go with the Geisley or the JP, so probably the A5. For as far as reliability is concerned, I'm not as convinced with the JP. And for as far as the Geisley is concerned, you don't need all that additional spring weight on there. I've had negative experiences with the ones that I've used. They cause me problems, and it's not necessary. The buffer spring is not something that needs upgraded. So I would say probably go with the Voltor.
Do you think a Daniel Defense Mark 18 upper with an A5 tube H2 buffer is a good match, not shooting suppressed?
Sure. They should be silicon heavy barrels, so you would need the H2, yes.
Opinions on the Colt Pattern 10.5-inch 9mm sub gun?
Excellent gun. There are better ones out there than Colt. People who've actually made some improvements to Colt. QC10 for one. There's I would even say for as far as CMMG, the Banshee will be an improvement over it. The barrel length, ideally 10.5 for a 9mm is perfect. It's not too long and it's not too short. You're gonna get a full burn. It's a good design. Please don't get me wrong. However, there are some better alternatives out there. I'm certainly a fan of the lock breech of the MPX or the radial delay of the CMMG Banshee. I think there's a big benefit to that.
Thank you, Adam, for the migraine recommendation. I'll remember that. I haven't quite tackled the migraine issue with the doctor yet. I have an ulcer that I'm dealing with first and some other stuff, but I'm going to go back in a month and deal with that. But I know there's a lot on the market now. I haven't had insurance for a really long time and unfortunately haven't really been dealing with it. But yeah, that's interesting that they have a nasal spray now for that. That's awesome. Do you think HK's price points will ever nudge them out of competition for mill contracts, ultimately causing them to focus on more commercial products?
Well, that's happened throughout their history. They've lost a lot of contracts due to their price point, but they never go anywhere. For as far as they're still around. and they have not done anything with commercial sales either. Every time they've tried to do something that was priced reasonably, the prices went up. USP and Point, that was designed to compete with Beretta, Sig, and Glock in the $600 price point in 1994 when they came out. Where are they now? They're up $900, so they're now way more than the whole point of that was to give them an affordable rifle. And then you see the same thing with the 416. You're looking at 3 to 4 times the size, that of a Colt. Um, they've lost a lot of contracts due to cost. My own hometown in Rochester, New York, when they initially went over to 45 automatic pistols years ago, the guy from the Firearms Training Unit, he was dead set on the next RPD pistol being the USP 45 until the prices came down, and then ended up trading the Berettas, their Beretta 92 compact pistols in for Cougars, and chambered in 45 auto. Just couldn't do it. So no, they've always had that problem.
And before I forget, guys, you do have a new video out. It will be out at noon tomorrow, and it's on the Walther PPS. So that'll be noon tomorrow. I scored an LMT SA enhanced BCG for $100. Any major difference between this and FA BCG that would make me want to get an FA BCG instead?
No. The only time I say stay away from the semi-auto ones is when you have the earlier Colts that have the exposed firing pin. The LMT ones don't have that, so there really isn't any benefit unless you're going full auto with the full auto carrier. It doesn't make a difference mechanically. The only real benefit is if you want to go full auto.
Somebody asked earlier, I think it was Carrie, if the wine helps with the migraines. I mean, that's an excuse to drink it, right? It's for medicinal purposes. Is there a quality difference between the square stamp uppers and the C stamp uppers, the 11.5 inch 733 model versus the 935 model to be exact?
Those are forging codes. They mean absolutely nothing. That just says what forging house did they come from. The quality comes from the machining process. So there's nothing you're going to be able to tell by the forging codes. There's no one that's better than the other. If you look at all the different manufacturers, they all use different ones. There's no one company just uses Ciro or just uses Anchor Harvey or whatever. They all use the same ones, whatever's available at the time.
And I want to thank all of you that donated last Q&A last Wednesday to support the cause for me to get my CHL. It was a very, very long day. And I know somebody commented on Facebook that they thought it was ridiculous that you have to go do that to exercise your Second Amendment to carry. But I actually thought it was really nice to sit down and talk about the laws of the state. And I actually had a really good time when, we got down to brass tacks of who you could shoot and when. And basically I learned as a female, I can basically shoot anybody if the presumption is he's aggressive. Yeah, he better slink back. So,
and how lucky we are to be in Texas.
Oh yeah, that Texas is on your side. I heard that all the time, and they're like
at their communist enclave up in the north.
So I learned stuff that I didn't even know as a Texan. It's like if somebody's at your door trying to break in, he doesn't have to get over the threshold. According to the guy, you can just shoot him. You don't have to drag him over the threshold. You just shoot him. And the cops are going to congratulate you and say, good job, especially if you're a woman.
Yeah.
And I learned that the guy who broke into our car and stole my expensive sunglasses, I could have just shot him. I mean, he could have had my Chanel sunglasses running down the road, and I could have just shot him if I wanted to. I was like, this is amazing. But I definitely learned a lot, and I definitely felt a lot comfortable with, going to the range and doing all of that. And
she did awesome.
I actually had a lot of fun with that part. With do 2 quick double taps or 3, and then,
2 controlled pairs.
Yes, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. So thank you guys for donating for that. And, I did get it. I just have to now go get my fingerprint. So yes, God bless Texas. God bless the Republic. Joseph on DonorBox says, I've been away for a while, and I'm glad you are still around. I'm kind of nervous about Biden.
Yeah.
Like everybody is.
Yes, we are too.
I guess it'll be interesting to see. Jay wants to know, do you have an opinion on using demilled Saber Defense A4 upper stock and buffer tube when building an M16 A4 clone?
Their Saber Defense built nothing there. Those are all bought from U.S. government contractors, so there's no problem with using those parts. Saber Defense, I had visited that factory one time, and they did not manufacture one part for their AR-50 or their M16A4s in house. It all came from approved U.S. government contractors. So yeah, those aren't Saber Defense parts. Those are U.S. government contract.
Oh, guys, y'all need to stop reading so much into it. Like me saying that I could shoot the guy who stole my glasses from my car. I wouldn't shoot. I won't even get into it. There's just people that just want to start stuff. Y'all need to go somewhere and not here. Christopher wants to know. He says it's for the Waterburger Fund. Thank you, Christopher. Have you ever seen the buffer detent break? Is that something to be concerned about?
But the buffer retainer pin does break, and that's for a couple of reasons. One, it's when it's drilled, the hole's drilled, it's drilled too far in. Well, if it's drilled too far in towards the buffer, um, every time the buffer goes forward, it smacks into that. Eventually, will snap it off. Or two, if the hole's drilled too far forward, eventually the buffer will hit it, and it will make it break through the front of that part of the lower receiver. So yeah, is it necessary for fit and function? No. The whole purpose of the buffer is to retain it when the receivers are separated. On a properly made rifle, when you close the upper and lower receiver, the bolt carrier pushes the buffer rearward, so it no longer engages the buffer retainer pin. Those of you who see little ticks on the outer rims of your buffer, that basically is telling you that your buffer retainer is drilled a little too far rearward. So every time the buffer bounces forward, it strikes that, and that's where those little ticks come from.
Oh, you say one thing and it gets everybody going. Mike says if you're not scared to break the law, then you are a threat to everyone. I'll say this. Let me just dive into this a little bit. When I made the reference to the sunglasses, there are a group of punks that are coming into neighborhoods like ours and working in gangs and going to cars and breaking into them and stealing things out of them. In fact, our neighbor who has a very nice truck, he came outside to his truck on big bricks.
Yeah.
And let me just tell you as a Texan, those boys deserve to be shot.
Yeah.
Because then maybe they won't come into neighborhoods anymore stealing shit. And
those
weren't just some glasses from the dollar store. Those were $500 Chanel sunglasses. And if you're going to come on my property and steal my stuff, then you should need a gun. So there, to make it clear. Do you have an opinion on using, oh wait, we already did that one. I live in Virginia and we're going through it here with our communist governor. Our Second Amendment is under siege. Well, it's under siege in here too, because you can't even make a comment without everybody going nuts. 2A eats their own and you shouldn't. Do muzzle brake comps like VG6 Gamma increase gas pressure for any significant amount?
No, they don't increase the gas pressure at all. VG6 is a muzzle brake. It decreases recoil, but it increases muzzle rapport and muzzle flash. On heavier caliber guns, 300 Win Mag and above, yeah, I think they're really good. For 5.56. I don't see a benefit to them at all.
What is the story behind Glock and AFSOC? Do they use it through a SOCOM contract or does big AFHQ buy them?
Well, one of the things about our special operations community, can go out and buy whatever that they want, and that is without the testing of Green Army. So they can now regular military has to all go through Anniston and go through Rock Island. So the Glocks that were bought well, you had some that were bought by SOCOM, and those were to replace some of the 45s like the Mark 23 and such. Then, of course, you had the Marine Corps MUSOC, who decided to buy their 1911s, which was ridiculous to begin with. Found out that they were obsolete, and they went with the Glock 19. So those were bought by the Marine Corps. The U.S. government per se has not bought them for the U.S. government. The U.S. government has bought Glocks for foreign military aid, foreign military sales.
Let me just kick somebody out real quick. You shouldn't even be in here, dude. Like, this is a 2A group. Like, you shouldn't even be here. Brandon on DonorBox. Thank you, Brandon. What are your thoughts on the Geisley URGI? I've heard about the rail bending. I really want to build a complete clone, but the upper seems to be discontinued. Thanks and have a good night.
I have not had the opportunity to get one of those in here yet. Geisley was a company that I used to work with a lot. They would send me stuff in here for me to review. And then after Bill Geisley sort of took a step back and there's a new management took over, they don't send me anything anymore to review. So, I've heard the same things that you have, but I've had no personal experience with it. And I sort of avoid conversations that I don't have personal experience with because I'm not going to repeat. I don't like repeating rumors to you guys. So that's best I can tell you on that. I'd love to get my hands on one, but it just never happened.
Steve wants to know, what is the shortest reliable, did we do this one, shortest reliable barrel length for a 300 blackout AR pistol?
AR, that's a whole different ballgame using subsonic ammunition. Subsonic ammunition, you could probably go with an 8-inch barrel or 10-inch barrel. However, if you're looking at supersonic, I would not go below 10.5. That's why you're utilizing the pistol length gas system is so the gun will still work with the subsonic. However, with the supersonic, you're overgassing the system.
I love that analogy. Put a nail in the coffin. Because his name, no, his name was Coffin.
Was it?
Yes. Coffin went bye-bye. Coffin wandered into the wrong knitting club, okay?
Yeah. I don't see the question, so I don't get to see what she's doing.
He ran with me saying, I could have shot the guy who stole my sunglasses. No, those little punks that have been running around the neighborhood stealing people tires off people's trucks that work every single day. No,
mailboxes.
They deserve to meet a gun, and I guarantee it will cut crime down real quick. I'm not saying that I'm running through the yard shooting anybody.
So disappointed in our assault terriers didn't warn us.
Slept right through
they were
it.
Asleep, yeah.
Do we know, or can we make an educated guess when ammo prices will return to normal?
As long as people are hoarding it, let me address that. Ammo prices. Those prices are not due to the cost of ammunition.
Oh, do you want to tell them how much that the 9mm at the range that I had to go to?
Yeah, I don't go into gun shops because I deal directly with companies, with the manufacturers and everything and so forth. So I don't go into gun shops. So we had to go into a local gun range, a indoor gun range for her class. And I saw a case of 9mm for $850. Now, he probably spent $150, $200 maybe for that case of ammunition. So what you have gun shops who are taking advantage of the situation to line their pockets. So the prices that you're seeing are not due to the cost of ammunition. They're due to the cost of greedy gun shop owners who are taking advantage of people. I was sickened when I saw $850 on that they would do that to people. It's the same thing with the cost of guns. If you look at the way cost of guns are going up, they're not going up for as far as what the distributors are buying them for and the dealers are buying them for. Those inflamed costs are brought on by greedy gun shop owners who are cashing in on this crisis. So I was disgusted when I saw that. But that's the reality is there's no ammo shortage as long as the hoarding is taking place and as long as you have greedy gun shop owners taking advantage of the 2A community, especially in a time like this. There's no end in sight right now for that.
Sean said he scared the crap out of the meter reading dude. He came at night, and so he put his Mark 18 in his face. He apologized to him later, though. Well, Sean, it's in all these. Everybody's talking about how cars being broken into the gateway crime, and that's what I'm worried about too. Because we moved.
What kind of an idiot would come at night like that?
I know, right? Well, I came home yesterday and some guy kind of shot out of our neighbor's backyard and they've had a break in before really badly. And so I, called Chris outside and he just kind of stood there and took a photo of the truck because it looked real sketchy. But, we didn't draw a gun on him or anything. I mean, if it was at night, I probably would have said, Chris, go. Yeah, it was bad. He did not like that indoor range at
No.
all.
Yeah, when I saw the price of what he was charging for guns and ammunition, it just made me sick.
And
It reminded me why I don't hang out at gun shops.
in fact, he made me drive all the way out to his range, was just almost an hour away the day before so that I got practice. So I've, officially gone to the range after my 2-year
Yeah, now we
hiatus.
got to find her a pistol so she can go out there and she can practice with it
I
regularly.
liked, was it the M18?
Yeah.
That was a
The
nice
problem
gun.
is that it's not something you can't stick an M18 in your purse or on your side. You have to use something smaller.
Why not? That was a nice gun. How do I fix a 10.5 Colt upper that is over gas without adding an adjustable gas block?
Add a heavier buffer to it. It's the best thing that you can do. But those Colt barrels, in order for you to have it over gas like that, chances are you've got a lot of rounds through it, and you've got gas port erosion.
I will say I was extremely spoiled at the range because he did have like 3 or 4 different options and all different kinds of optics for me to try too to see
Yeah,
what I
she had everything:
liked.
fiber optic. She had regular iron sights, and she had a holographic.
I think I'm like the old school, just the regular sights and everything on there, but I was proud of myself. What do you think's going to happen with our Second Amendment? Do you think they are going to try and come for our guns? What are your thoughts?
I don't think they're going to try to come for the guns because there's going to be nobody to enforce it. When you have states where you have law enforcement's already saying that we will not work as government stormtroopers to do it, you can pass all the laws you want, but you have to have somebody who is willing to enforce it. And if you consider our law enforcement were Trump supporters, they're conservatives. It was the Republicans who supported them throughout all this bullshit over the last year with the riots and all that kind of stuff, and people wanted to fund them. So they don't have law enforcement on their side. If you were to have federal law enforcement can't execute warrants without without the help of the state. And that's already been problems in many states for the feds because the police departments won't do it, like here in Texas. The biggest threat I see is the banning of the production of high capacity magazines and rifles, which is something that's easier for them to enforce. But actual confiscation, unless they bring in the UN or something like that, it ain't gonna happen.
No, I'm not going to shoot my husband, buddy. You've said a couple things a couple times. You're going to meet Coffin's End. I'm ready to put some people in a coffin. What are your favorite imported firearms that will not be possible or easy to manufacture stateside after an import ban?
Well, I would have to say number one would be the CZ Bren 2. That would certainly be one. Um, well, quite frankly, that's probably the main one. If you look at most of my other favorite rifles they're all U.S. made, even like the HKMR 5.56 that's made in the U.S. Look at the Robinson, look at the ECR. Um, most of those Meister rifles were already part of that one ban. But you figure any of the AKs that you guys like, any of the Arsenals, for instance, the Romanian or the Wassers, stuff that won't be able to, what's really going to hurt is going to be the guys who love AKs. Um, even the Tavors and stuff, that stuff's all. The problem is if they ban the importation of the parts kits, then that's a good, unless you are an AR guy, that's pretty much everything.
Alicio says, don't forget what happened during Hurricane Katrina. That was my point with talking about my instructor who, and this is in Texas, was saying that, Texas is on the side of their, law abiding gun owning citizens. In Louisiana, he brought that up as an example because he was like, think of all the looting that happened during Katrina. And then, for us, he was like, now what looting happened during Harvey? And it was like, there really wasn't any.
Nope.
Of course,
we shoot.
Yeah. So it's a different situation when your citizens are armed. Let's see. That eases my mind more. Thank you. I love my guns. Just purchased a SIG Tread 308 2 weeks ago.
Well, nice choice.
Thoughts on a 458 SOCOM at PDW with an 8 to 10-inch barrel?
No. Um, I did a video on the 450 Bushmaster. It was a American tactical pistol. It was brutal in recoil, and the muzzle report was nasty. And quite frankly, I would go with a 450 Bushmaster over that caliber anyways, just due to the the more availability of ammunition. 458 SOCOM is still relatively hard to come by, and it's obscure manufacturers. You don't have any normal manufacturers. No Federal, no Remington, no Winchester, no CCI, no Hornady making that stuff. But no, that is a brutal caliber in a pistol. Very uncomfortable to shoot.
There's some conversation about Texas seceding. Yes, I think that's definitely been brought up. We have a legislator that is trying to bring it into a vote to start the conversation about it, and they're calling it Texit. But it would just be to start the conversation. It would definitely be interesting. It's definitely interesting times.
An island of freedom and a sea of tyranny.
Well, guys, thank you for joining us. If you would like a copy of Black Rifle 2, I implore you to get on it and email me at hbartacci@smallarmsolutions.com, because there's not a lot left, unfortunately. And when it's gone, it's gone. And I have so many people emailing me every single day that are asking for Black Rifle 1. And if you guys want that, I'm sorry. I don't have any way to get it. Or any way to know how to find it. I know that it's marked up, and the cheapest I've seen it so far is $160, I believe. So,
Electric Gray was out of those in July.
We don't do PayPal. PayPal is anti-2A. We do Stripe, which I will send you an invoice, and all you have to do, it's a credit card little thing. You click it, and that's it. You don't need an account or anything. So it's super easy. Just email me, and I'll send you an invoice for it, and you will be on the list. Yes, I still have patches and stickers. The patches are almost gone. I think I have like 10 left.
You're not getting mine.
I'll come steal one off his desk.
Sorry, sold. To grab them.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you, guys.